Coming to you from Austin, Texas on this overcast gray day, it's Color Commentary, and we are Michael Petchek.
And Adrian Gonzalez.
So we can review. You weren't at F&M?
No, I went to visit my mother because we were going to go to GP Dallas, and then we didn't. So I went to Houston instead because I had the time off of work. So sue me, Mike.
My wife got a little sick, and we figured it was better not to risk it. There were actually some people on Twitter who were asking if we were going to be there, and I feel bad because we had said we were, and then we weren't, but life takes precedent.
It makes me happy I didn't actually pay for the tournament because I was going back and forth at whether or not I actually wanted to play in the main event. So
yeah,
glad I didn't pre-sign up for that. And I'm getting ready to move to a house from my apartment pretty soon. So kind of happy I saved the money.
Yeah, no, it worked out about as well as it could. So the big news this week for the podcast is we've got some new audio equipment. So any sort of feedback on how the audio sounds is greatly appreciated because, obviously we're trying to deliver the best product we can, right?
We got a mixer, and Mike got these cute little filters for the mics.
Yeah, we swapped from the huge pop filters that cover our entire faces to on-stage windscreens, which, make our life a little bit easier and hopefully...
Yeah, and there were some episodes where I would just stare at this big black circle for an hour, and so I'm kind of glad that is over.
Yeah, I'm sure that if we got a photo from the right angle, it would look like we have giant clown noses. So.
Oh man, we should definitely try and get that photo.
But enough tomfoolery about us.
Yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Drake's gone. It's just gone.
If we had a soundboard here, I would probably play something like, "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore."
Really? Not just jam on an air horn repeatedly?
I mean, I would do that too. I was making a reference to Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, but that makes you sound more like a Tuscan Raider, maybe.
But okay, so this is
breaking news from live from Papa.
Sadly, it came in the middle of the week, so we couldn't really. It came on a Thursday, not really the middle of the week, so we couldn't really kind of get on it as quickly as possible. But Wizards announced that Peregrine Drake is being banned effective November 16th on Magic Online.
And you gave me an interesting piece of trivia regarding that. You told me that Memory Jar is in fact not an emergency ban. It was a preemptive ban, so therefore Drake is the only emergency ban to ever happen. Technically, on a technicality here.
I think this is one of those weird technicalities where it's they're both functionally emergency bans, in the eye of the public, but in this case, it was an off-schedule ban. Wizards in their statement did say that because Pauper is, in their eyes, an online-only format.
And cue the tears of rage.
Yeah, there were some people who were.
I was a little like.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating, but
I'm pinching the bridge of my nose and pushing up my glasses. You can't see it, but that's what I'm doing.
But the announcement did say that because they considered an online-only format, they felt that this wasn't, setting a precedent for, off-schedule bannings in other formats. And I think that's pretty legit. They're affecting a very small population,
right?
Scheme of Magic.
Being a sort of a niche format, and yeah, there was a B somewhere there, and then I lost.
I think they're justified in it, and I'm glad that it happened. We're going to get some of our format diversity back. We're going to actually see mid-range again, and some of the control decks, people at our LGS on Friday were already playing mono black control again. That's back in the viability.
And I mean, just anecdotally, of course, I don't really know if we have statistics to support this. The format was not doing great because of Drake. A lot of people got really discouraged. I know that there are some people who are sad to see it go, but overall, I think it's positive for the format. Do not think it will be a precedent for the future. I don't think Wizards is going to emergency ban Delver anytime soon. But this card was really hamstringing the format. So honestly, happy to see it go.
I mean, the interesting thing here is that this does mean moving forward, if something else, if we see another sort of treasure cruise situation where something completely busted gets printed in a standard set, we do now know that they could emergency ban it if they so desire.
I don't know. They said they weren't going to set a precedent. And I guess you should take what they say maybe with a grain of salt. But Treasure Cruise being a standard, I don't know. I feel like a standard card would get banned.
I'm not talking about in standard. I'm talking about
No,
in our format.
No. I knew what you meant. I just feel like if a card was printed into standard, it would probably be subject to the normal banning cycle. This was not a standard card. This was a supplement set card. So I think there are some there's some jiggery pokery going on with it, so to speak. But
and I think part of it is also the fact that they very early on did acknowledge on I think the Magic Online Tumblr account that they said it would be, if they had known about the Cloud of Fairies ban at the time, they would not have printed it in common.
Yeah, this has honestly been a long time coming. Drake was a mistake. Love his album still, but
yeah, that's the big thing. We don't get to make any more jokes about Canadian rappers.
And hopefully this will be the last episode we ever discuss the card. So now, out of sight, out of mind.
I mean, we do have a tiny bit more time with it in the format. Like it's not an instant reset back to.
No, I know. I'm just saying. And now sort of the point that I kind of want to get to here. The good news about all this. You spoke about this a little bit before the show. Is someone on Reddit pointed out that it's kind of like we're getting 4 sets all at once because now we're not having to deal with the specter of Drake. So all these other cool cards that maybe we're getting a little underplayed now have a moment to sort of prove their worth without the shadow of the Drake.
And I mean, like, I'm going to be interested to see if the Drake shell, sans Drake, stays in the format.
So that's been a deck for a while, I think. And I don't think it really was a thing without... I mean, it was good, but it's not like Drake good,
But I'm just sort of wondering if, we see something that kind of gets, a little bit more draw heavy and sort of like a blue-red teachings, I guess, like a hard control deck that just swaps the black removal for red removal. Just spitballing here, but I think it's going to be interesting if that sticks around, if people try and make it continue to work despite Drake's absence.
I mean, you can still Ghostly Flicker, a Mold Drifter, and an Archaeomancer, that still seems fine.
I mean that's kind of the thing that Grixis Metalcraft does. Like maybe people port over to that. I don't know. Again, good for the format. We've got a lot of new opportunities. I really hope Bloodbriar does something, because I just like it as a card design. I don't think it's great, but it never had a time to shine. Like,
well, there's a lot of cards, right, that never really had their moment.
Yeah.
I wonder how this will affect the old choo-choo train.
Oh, the God, I don't actually...
Renegade Freighter. Yeah, because the reason that card was so good is because it pushed through damage, it increased your clock. I think it's still good.
I think it's still fine. I think if anything, it's a little bit better because it does die to bolts. So
Drake also dies to bolts.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is without a very strong red deck running 4 bolts and 4 flame slashes,
all right,
you got a little bit less instant speed removal to contend with. Also,
flame slash is not an instant, Mike.
It's not an instant.
Calling them out all over the place here.
Okay. I'll tighten up here. But one of the other things is even an instant speed edict is really miserable against that card.
Right. Yes.
Because
absolutely.
you
have 2 creatures.
You have 2 creatures by nature of it has been crewed. You have 2.
So I guess something else we want to talk to about the Drake. So this means that sorcery speed removal is going to get a little better.
Yeah.
Chainer's Edict is going to go back up. Honestly, if you have not bought Mono Black on Moto yet, you should do it like right now, because that deck was dirt cheap because Drake was so good and that deck was so bad. Really, you probably should have bought it a week ago, honestly. But at this point, if you want to get the Mono Black, like, now is the time, because those cards are going to be the least expensive they'll be for a long time.
And because Moto has such like a quick economy because of the bots,
right?
That price is going to shoot back up again. But yeah, if you like Mono Black, you can play it again and not have a terrible time.
Right. Mono Black, good deck.
Yeah, good deck. But yeah, we're free. We're moving on. There are new things that we get to explore in this format, and we get to go back to brewing. Like I get to show up with like weird jank, like Oromancer stuff. But enough about that. We're gonna move on to our deck tech, and I actually have an email that goes along with this deck tech. So
I want you to read it dramatically.
Dramatically?
I want you to, the courier has come from the distant kingdom, and they are delivering the message of most importance to us, the Pauper Kingdom.
I will do that. Hey guys, recently I found your podcast and am a big fan of your work. I wanted to share with you the Jund list I'm running because it uses several cards you have mentioned on your show, specifically Blightning, Putrid Leech, and Diabolic Edict. About a year ago, I stumbled across this Jund Pauper list on the website Pure MTGO. I have been playing with it off and on since then, with some tweaks to the mana base and sideboard. Thanks for taking a look. Let me know what you think. Joel from BDX, helping to keep Portland weird. And then there's a link to the original article.
Methinks the Lord who sent yon message be onto something. All right, I'll drop the act.
All right, yeah, we'll go back to normal voices. So Jund, for those of us who don't play Modern, is black, red, and green.
Right, it is an Alara shard that is defined by being one of the best fair decks because it's full of value creatures and removal. Good removal.
Yeah, it's just jam-packed with good creatures, good removal, and hoping that you curve out well.
Right. Hallmarks of the deck in all formats, Lightning Bolt, Duress, Discard, Bob, Goif. I mean, not here, but,
Not here, but, that's the general thing.
Him the Torok. Psst.
Ooh.
Boo, hiss.
So let's get into the creature base a little bit. So we're going to start off with 2 copies of Blastoderm, and this is a classic from when I started playing. 2 green, you get a 5/5. It has Shroud, so you can't really deal with it super easily. And then it has Fading 3. So Fading is a mechanic from Nemesis, which is this comes into play with X fade counters on it, where X is the number on the card. And at the beginning of each upkeep, you remove 1. And when you can no longer remove counters from this, you sacrifice it.
And incidentally, that makes it better than Vanishing because Vanishing is when the last counter is removed.
Well, specifically, it's the difference there is...
Well, this is when you can no longer move a counter, so you get it for another turn.
Yeah, Vanishing 3 is not as good as Fading 3.
No, Vanishing 3 is... Oh, right. Yeah,
not
this
as
one
good.
is Fading. Okay.
So
Getting them mixed up already.
So Blastoderm, it's a 4-drop, 5/5 with Shroud. It's just really hard to deal with. Next in this list, we've got 2 copies of Borderland Ranger, 2 and a green for a Human Scout, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library.
So it's sort of like Wood Elves, but it doesn't get the forest, and it goes to your hand.
Yeah, it can get any basic land. And, this is a deck where you're looking for early fixing of untapped sources. Right. Then we got 3 copies of Croconura. I believe this was good and limited, wasn't it? I want to say.
No. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think Simic was that great in Gatecrash. You wanted to be Boros.
Yeah, I remember Boros
right.
was the big thing.
It was definitely annoying.
So Croconura, 2 and a green again, 1/3 creature Crocodile Frog because that's how the Simic roll, and it's got Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature had a greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
And so it's obviously great in Pauper, where if Delver is the best deck again, and this just blocks Delver.
If it evolves once, it just eats everything in Delver, or at least just holds it at bay.
Yeah. Because it'll chump. It'll bounce off Spire Golem and block everything else. And Delver's going to have an extremely hard time getting rid of that card. So it seems very good, very strong.
Then we got 2 copies of Keldon Marauders. There you go. There's a vanishing creature. So 1 in a red, you get a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, you deal 1 damage to target player, and it has vanishing 2. So basically, you get 1 attack with it.
That's actually a little surprising to me. That's normally a card that's not seen outside of Burn, and is generally treated as either a 2-mana shock or a 2-mana lava axe.
Yeah. Well, actually, it triggers Croconura.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm into. I'm rubbing my hands together gleefully.
Actually, the next thing, singleton copy of Okiba Gang Shinobi.
Oh, okay. We're in business now.
So Okiba Gang Shinobi is 3 and 2 black. It's a 3/2. It has ninjutsu for 3 and a black. It's a rat ninja. And when it deals damage to the opponent, they discard 2 cards.
Yeah, so there's the sort of discard Jund element.
So wait, actually, let me think this one through. So if you have Croconura, you go Keldon Marauders, it becomes a 2/4. You're not going to get 3 evolve triggers out of that. Okay.
No, but it's still good. So Evolve is also one of those mechanics that like just never really caught on in Pauper. I think there were some Delver lists that ran the blue 1-drop.
There was a hot minute where there was a blue-green Simic, like a Simic Evolve deck. It got to run like Dreamstalker.
Okay,
That's
that's
pretty
pretty
1/5,
right? That's
and it
pretty
can
good.
bounce itself.
Because on its face, the ability seems very good. I think in practice, it's just a little slow.
It's a little slow. We don't have a lot of creatures with flash, so you're still a little soft to removal from red.
Right.
I don't know. It's just it's one of those cool mechanics that's just not quite there.
Right.
Next, another Maybeboard alumnus, Putrid Leech. 3 of them. Black and a green, 2/2, pay 2 life, give it +2/+2.
Unfortunately, does not trigger Evolve because it'll always be a 2/2. I mean, the first time it will.
First time it will.
But just because you make it bigger doesn't mean it will. So
Yep.
let's
Then we've got 4 Werebear.
Werebear.
One in a green. It's a 1/1, taps for a green, and then as threshold, it gets +3/+3.
It's a ramp, and then it's a 4/4.
Yeah.
That seems okay. And also, if you already have Threshold, Werebear will trigger Evolve when it enters the battlefield.
It will. Yeah, because
it'll enter as a 4/4.
Yeah, I had this weird discussion with someone a while back, and I actually learned that Threshold on a creature doesn't actually affect it while it's still in your hand.
Right.
Or any other part of the field, except might still affect the graveyard. I don't know. Not a rules expert. Then we've got a final singleton copy here. It is 1 copy of Zertos Swine.
And this is the Spice McGeist. For those of you familiar with, I don't know, Gore Clan Rampage, Mike, why don't you talk about it?
Yeah. 3 red and a green. It's a 5/4. But the more important part is it's got Blood Rush, which was the Return to Ravnica Gruul ability. So Blood Rush, I'll just read it off the card. 1, a red and a green. Discard Zertos Swine. Target attacking creature gets +5/+4 until end of turn. This is an activated ability.
Right. Uncounterable.
This is an uncounterable 5-point hit. I kind of wish we had some stuff with Trample here.
I kind of wish we had some stuff with haste, but that's just the problem with Pauper, I guess.
Yeah. And that hits like a truck. 5 points of damage is a lot.
Yeah.
That also means like some of your things will start trading with like Ulamog's Crusher and stuff like that.
Or just, kill off a Gurmag Angler if you need to. Now, this deck is not running Gurmag Angler. Is that correct?
It's not. And I kind of think Gurmag might fit in here well. You've already got the Marauders, which are going to die. There's a decent amount of removal in here as well. And I just feel like there's definitely a really solid opportunity to just, jam in a 5/5. I mean, why not, right?
Right.
All right, moving on. We're going to look at the instants. So we got 2 copies Burst Lightning. Red instant, deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Kicker of 4 generic. If you kick it, you deal 4.
Mm-hmm.
So early game, it eats Delvers, right? Like I imagine it kills Delvers. It kills early Mana Dorks and Elves.
Early game, it's Shock. Late game, it's Galvanic. Really, really costly Galvanic Blast.
Yeah, and you're paying that extra to get it to Galvanic Blast just for the opportunity cost, because sometimes like if this was just like, I don't know, like 3 mana deal 4, it doesn't answer turn 1 or turn 2 threats.
Right. And shock is fine.
Yeah, shock is not the gold standard, but it's not bad either. Then we got 4 copies Diabolic Edict, instant, target player sacrifices a creature for 1 and a black. Just really solid removal, lets you interact at instant speed, which is always important. Being able to for example, if your opponent has a creature that you really want to kill, you can Diabolic Edict in response to another creature being cast, so that way you can get the one that you absolutely want. Little things like that.
Yeah, Edict's good.
Edicts are good.
Adrian says Edict's good. That sounds like a spell that makes your opponent sacrifice a creature.
Then we got 4 copies Lightning Bolt, which
Yeah.
is conversely the gold standard for burn. 1 red, instant speed, deal 3.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that unless you're playing Affinity.
Well, how about another 1 red instant burn spell? Magma Spray. There's a copy of that in here. Deals 2 damage to a creature. If it would die this turn, exiled instead.
Now, I wonder why this deck is running Magma Spray. I guess it's really good versus Mono Black. I guess it's really good versus any of the Tordex decks. I can never mind.
Yeah,
I've just explained
yeah.
it to myself. Really, what I was thinking for mono black is it denies them the opportunity to get it,
Unearth.
to unearth later.
And specifically, most of it, Mono Black's unearth targets die to this on its own.
Right, exactly, because they're all great ogres with upside.
And occasionally the Spectre that's a 2/1, Liliana Spectre.
Right.
Then we got 2 copies of Terminate, another thing we featured on the baby board. Black and a red, destroy target creature, can't be regenerated. Is this the best piece of, like, assuming you have perfect mana, is this the best piece of removal in the format? I think it might be.
Yeah, I think so. Just unconditionally destroying a creature is pretty. I mean, I guess it's not as very good versus, say, Boggles, but anything else? Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me clarify. Best piece of targeted removal.
Yes,
I think
would
it
say
is. So just really solid aggressive removal options. Since Magma Spray's in there, I'm wondering if there's a home for. I've been playing this Complete Disregard, the one from
3
Battle.
mana,
3 mana exile a creature with power 3 or less.
Yeah, I think can Magma Spray target players?
Magma Spray cannot.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean, both of these are going to hit Delver. It's a little bit slower, and that would be one of my concerns.
Yeah, I feel like in this deck, especially because your mana is going to be a little pinched.
That and Magma Spray can be paired with a Bolt, for example. Like Bolt, Magma Spray, exile an Angler.
Yeah, that seems fine. Fine.
Then we've got let's move on.
No
to
soul manipulations for you, Mike.
Yeah, I know. Then we move on to sorceries. Again, more Maybeboard alumni in the form of 2 copies of Blightning.
They're just going ham on these Maybeboard cards.
It turns out the Maybeboard has just been us building this deck.
Yeah, it turns out the
Slowly.
Maybeboard is actually just genned.
Blightning, 1, a black, a red. Target opponent takes 3 damage, discards 2 cards.
Yeah, it seems so good.
Yeah,
it seems so good.
Here it feels okay because you're kind of like killing off a bunch of their stuff, and by turn 3 you kind of want to be denying them future plays.
Right.
I'm not. The 3 damage probably does matter, but it's not a huge upside.
Right.
Next we've got Edge of Autumn, and this was
spicy.
Yeah, this is a spicy one. So Edge of Autumn, 1 and a green, sorcery. If you control 4 or fewer lands, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library.
And this feels good.
Well,
fixing.
Yes, yeah. So there's 3 copies of this. This is just rampant growth if you have 4 or less lands.
Right.
The upside here is cycling sacrifice a land. So you late game, if you flood it out, you can pop one of your lands you don't need and get a card.
So here's a play I want to pick your brain over. Let's say you have 3 lands in Evolving Wilds. Could you play this card in response, sack the no, because the Evolving Wilds trigger is always going to resolve first. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was like, is there
also
a way
sacrifice is part of the cost.
Gotcha. I was like, no. I meant, is there a way to cheat the 4 land requirement when you cast the spell if you had an Evolving Wilds out? But
Yes. Oh, this is a sorcery.
Right. So you can't cheat that.
Actually, yeah, no, there is no way to cheat this. I see what you're getting at here, and that would be sweet.
If you did it in response, then maybe. But no, because the Evolving Wilds is going to then resolve before this resolves.
Yep.
No matter what you do.
I mean, you could fail to find, but that's bad.
Yeah, I don't know why you would do that.
Then we got 2 copies Faithless Looting, 1 red.
Oh, did you say the cycling cost on that
yes.
one? Okay.
Sacrifice a land. So
Sorry.
yeah, just to recap, late game, if you draw land and you have this in your hand, you can use that as your land drop for the turn, even if you don't need it, and then pop it immediately.
Right.
Get a new card. Increase your quality of your hand. Then we got 2 copies Faithless Looting, sorcery, red, discard 2, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, flashback, 2 and a red.
Yeah, this does feel like a Gurmag Angler would go in here.
Yeah, now that I've seen the Faithless Looting and the Edge of Autumn, Gurmag Angler seems like it would be a great fit, and I'm actually thinking Moldgraph Scavenger might be good. The 0/4 that with Delirium becomes a 3/4. For
oh
1
yeah,
and a
that
green.
card. This deck may be older than that. He did mention submitter did mention that it was a little older.
Then we got 2 copies Flame Slash. Excuse me. Red sorcery.
Yeah, you got it.
I got
time.
it right
That's
this
cool.
time.
You
Deals
good.
4 damage to target creature.
Yeah.
Just This hits everything except
Gurmag Angler,
Gurmag Angler,
Gearseeker Serpent,
Gearseeker,
Crusher.
And those are the only relevant cards I can think
I
of.
don't know. What about Twisted Abomination, Mike?
It kills it. You just regenerate it.
Yeah. I know.
Then we got 2 copies of Unearth. 1 black, return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it cycles for 2 generic. Let me actually scroll up. So that's hitting your Borderland Rangers, it's hitting your Croconuras, it's hitting your Marauders, it's hitting your Putrid Leeches, and it's hitting your Werebears.
Oh, maybe that's why Gurmag Angler's not in this deck. I don't know. I still think it's correct.
I'm kind of feeling like if I were to build this, I would cut the Unearths for Anglers.
Uh-oh.
I feel like I would prefer to have a 5/5 than being able to recycle 2 2s and 1 3s. That's just me though. I like Gurmag Angler as a card quite a bit. It's a good card.
Right. All right. Continue.
All right, we're gonna cover the lands, and this is the part of the deck which kind of dissuades me a little bit from building this. 3 Bloodfell Caves, the black-red gain land. 3 Jungle Hollows, the black-green gain land. 1 Rugged Highlands, the green-red gain land. Then we've got 4 forests, 3 mountains, 2 swamps, and 2 Evolving Wilds.
Is this a deck that wants Ash Barrens?
It probably is. I'm going to be honest. Especially if you wind up going with Gurmag Angler or Moldgraph Scavenger, because it counts as a land in the bin for Moldgraph, and it's a card you can exile for Gurmag Angler. I think it fits fine here, especially because if you don't have anything else to do with that 1 mana, it can also be a colorless. Although, I guess 3 colors, and you're running a colorless source, that might be a little rough, because there's no Karus. Like, once you commit this to the board, it's there.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe not an Ash Barrens deck. So this is kind of one of the issues that the Jund archetype as a whole in Pauper has faced, is the lack of good untapped duels. It's all, you're just, a lot of the time you're either not going to hit your mana to curve out perfectly, or you're going to be a turn behind.
Yeah, people have been trying to pick apart the Jund puzzle for a while now. I just think it goes back to the fact that blue is super duper good, right? And it's like you could build a solid mid-range focused deck like this and play Moldrifter instead, and your deck would be better.
Yeah, just the 2.
And you know what it is? It's because Bob is really the engine of that deck.
Less and less over the years. Like now, I think they're running Grimflayer, I believe.
But again, it's a form of card selection so that you don't have to play blue, but you're still getting additional cards every turn. And I think that's really what this deck suffers from in Pauper, is not having any of those engines.
Do you want to check out this sideboard?
Yeah, sure.
2 copies Ancient Grudge. It's a flashbackable artifact removal spell.
A standard.
Good. There's nothing else to say about Ancient Grudge. It's just good. It's not exciting.
Yeah, I got a grudge against Ancient Grudge, but whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. 2 Devour Flesh. Devour Flesh is a instant speed edict that gains life equal to the toughness of the creature sacrificed.
Why are those not just diabolic edicts?
Because he already has 4 in the main deck.
Oh, okay. I slept through that part.
Let me also hit you with this. You're in a pinch. You have just blood rushed a Zertos Swine onto your Keldon Marauders. They're dying next turn anyway. You can pop it for 7 life.
Sure.
I mean, it's not nothing.
Sure. It's not nothing. Sure.
I'm trying to see the plays. I'm trying to see the outside
Spice.
lines, the lines. Then we got 2 Duress. Targeted hand removal is always good.
Staple.
2 Elic Trickery. You got to be able to deal with elves somehow, right?
Staple.
Copy of Evenkar's Justice.
Staple remover.
Evenkar's hits a couple of the things in this deck.
Yeah, Evenkar's feels kind of weird. That being said, I'm sure it has good applications.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hit everything, so I feel a little better about it, but it does feel like you're going to be in an awkward situation at some point, but in the matchups, you need to wrath the board. Yeah, I think you don't care about wrathing.
Do we like... No, Crypt Rat seems terrible in this deck. I take it back.
Yeah. You've got enough threats that are like things you want to keep around.
Also, you don't have as much access to black mana.
True. 2 copies Natural State. That is the 1 green Stone Rain for affinity.
It's green, destroy target artifact, converted mana cost 3 or less.
Artifact or enchantment.
Okay.
It also hits Journeys. It hits O-Rings. Hits Rancors, I guess.
Armadillo Cloaks.
Armadillo Cloaks. There you go.
It hits that one that gives them ethereal armor. That's the one.
Yep. Ancestral Mask. Actually, it hits, I think, everything in Boggles. I just realized that.
Yeah, I think so.
Then 4 copies Pyroblast. Pretty straightforward sideboard, and it does demonstrate why you might want to be in 3 colors, because there's a huge variety of effects here.
Hashtag Gend out, as the kids say.
All right, cost. Let's talk cost. $46.37 in paper from TCG Player at time of recording. Online from Card Hoarder, 48.36.
That my bill and my phone number.
So actually, this is funky. The cost is almost the same in paper and online, and I don't think that usually happens. Most of our lists, there's a spread, and there's $2 difference here.
Undoubtedly, some of it's the Pyroblasts. In paper, I think is Diabolic a little pricey.
Diabolic's like 50 cents. Terminates are like $3-4 bucks.
Terminate is a thing.
Their creature base is all pretty cheap. Yeah, I think it comes down to Pyroblast is pricey. I think Ancient Grudges are decently expensive. And actually, I had to copy this list over to get this price because we got sent it, and the guy who sent it up. Let me pull up his name, Joel. He's actually foiled this whole thing out.
Joel.
So I had to.
So you must be doing well with this deck, Joel. Please, obviously we're very wrong, and I'm very wrong in my assessment here.
I mean, I think it's a fine mid-range deck. I think that it probably doesn't have great matchups for the hyper aggressive decks.
Also,
blue,
kind of good to know that Portland's got a good popper scene.
Yeah,
it's pretty sweet.
From what I know, they've got a decent scene up there. Pacific Northwest, they love their Magic up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time to move on to the Maybeboard.
Yeah, thanks so much for sending that in, Joel.
Yeah. And anyone else who's listening, if you've got a list, you can send it in, even if it's not finished. Because like we could do a deck doctor thing. Like we could, if you got like a roughed out list and you want serious feedback on it, I'd totally be down for that.
We are not gentle. I will forewarn you. We are very, very opinionated, and sometimes that comes across not the right way. We don't want you to hate us. We're very honest.
Be forewarned. If you send something in for us to deck doctor, we will give you our honest opinion. And no one likes having their kids called ugly.
Amen.
All right, our Maybeboard card for the day, Perplex.
What does that do? I'm so perplexed.
That's the best part about these new mics is we can whisper in. Well, new audio setup is we can whisper into them, and both of us can hear it crystal clear.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike. Oh God, that's unsettling.
All right, I won't do that again. But anyway, Perplex. Go on.
All right, 1 blue-black instant. Counter target spell unless its controller discards their hand.
All right.
Transmute 1 a blue and a black. Now this
terrible versus madness.
Terrible versus madness, but like most of the time this just reads counter target spell with a funky cost.
Well, it's really bad in the late game, isn't it? If your opponent top decks and is hellbent, they cast a spell, and you're like, "Oh, I'll play this. Discard your whole hand," and they're like, "All right."
There's nothing there.
Moving on.
Moving on from that nonsense. But Perplex is an interesting one.
It transmutes also, which is pretty good. It transmute 3, right?
Yes. So transmute, for those of you who are unaware, is the Dimir mechanic from original Ravnica. And you pay a cost, you discard the card from your hand, and then you search your library for a card with converted mana cost that's the same as the card you discarded.
Other ones that are played in our format are Muddle the Mixture and Drift of Phantasms, which are used in Turbo Fog and Free from the Real combo, respectively.
Yeah. And generally, when you have one of these effects, you kind of start looking at the toolboxy option. You start thinking, what can I get with this, and how can I assemble like a good set of spells that maximize the transmute?
Right, and that's sort of where Freed from the Real comes in, because with 3 mana they can go grab their Wing Edition, and in the Turbo Fox case, basically everything in that deck costs 2 mana, and then by itself, Muddle the Mixture is probably one of the best transmute cards just because it's a counter spell.
And this one is too. I mean, it's a more conditional counter spell. Actually, is it? Because this is counter any spell, but it's useless if they're hellbent.
Right. The other one is counter target instant or sorcery.
Yeah. So I guess 6 and 1, half a dozen in the other. They're both somewhat restricted counter spells. I'd probably prefer to play this in a control deck.
Right, because if you are, say you're playing it in your Deemer Alchemy deck, you can go get Alchemy with this. In the late game.
So I've actually got a list here. Do we want to go down it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ghostly Flicker. You can tutor for that.
Yeah.
Forbidden Alchemy. That was actually the second on my list.
Oh, I'm so smart.
Exclude. Brush with Death. Brush with Death's a cool one.
What is I thought you said Brushwood Theft for a second. I was like, wait, what? What is Brush with Death?
I'm actually a turkey. I forgot to put this one into the show notes for this week, so I actually have to pull it up. It's a drain life effect for 2. Let me pull this.
Sorry,
up.
we actually put all the cards we were unaware. We thought we might not know into the document based on some feedback we got, and of course, Mike over here missed one.
I missed the one that I can't even approximate. I know it's okay. Here we go. Brush with Death. Sorcery, 2 and a black. Effect, card text, buy back 2 and black. Target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life.
Oh, so a buyback life drain spell?
It is super grindy. It is
Seems okay.
Absurdly grindy.
Seems okay. You can get Capsize with this.
Yes, Capsize is actually the next one.
I'm so smart.
Choking Sands out of the board.
All right.
Your Tron matchups and stuff like that. Crypt Rats, if you need an emergency wrath. Curse of the Bloody Tome, a win con in some of the teachings lists.
A lot of good cards at 3.
Pristine Talisman, part of the other win con that teachings uses from time to time when it's not actually playing creatures. And Freed from the Real.
So would you run this in your Deemer Alchemy list?
Well, here's
the thing is you're already playing Soul Manipulation, which feels much better.
I'm playing Soul Manipulation, which I think I care more about. I think I care more about a remove soul that also is a raise dead than I do.
I think that's why this card doesn't see more play, is because there are like some of the cards you listed. Exclude is just a better counter spell than this is.
Most of the time,
most of the time, it's just going to be a better spell. So I think that's why, is because people aren't putting this in their deck because they don't need to fetch. I don't know. They don't want to waste a card fetching another card.
So I've seen this played in teachings from time to time, kind of as another option for tutoring through your library to find a thing you need.
Right.
It is only sorcery speed, which is a big downside.
Being able to grab Curse of the Bloody Tome does seem good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only transmute as a sorcery, right?
Yes, transmute is only as a sorcery. If it was instant speed, holy crap.
Well, but you don't want to be playing Curse of the Bloody Tome on turn 3 anyway, right?
Yeah.
You want to be, getting that when you have like maybe 8 mana or so.
So actually, let's return to Muddle for a second.
Okay.
Let me give you a reason why I prefer this over Muddle. Muddle is useful as long as you are playing a game where your opponent has instants and sorceries.
Well, it's also useful and it gets 2 drops.
Well, hold on. Hear me out.
Okay.
Perplex goes down in value as the game goes. So what if we think about this as sorcery speed cycling, where you draw the exact 3-drop you want?
All right, I could get behind that.
Like a counterspell with cycling on it would be good, just on its own. Like, is there cancel?
There is a counterspell with cycling on it. It is Traumatic Visions. It is a 5-mana counterspell. Yes.
Also, isn't that basic land cycling? I want to say, because
maybe
they just reprinted it in Conspiracy Take the Throne.
Like, I don't know. It's I remember it's this counterspell with cycling on it.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like this as like a fun of, like, it's definitely not, you don't want to play set of this.
No.
I feel like diminishing returns kick in as soon as you hit 2 or 3 copies.
Well, if you're playing Madness, you could counter your own spell and then discard your hand in response. I mean, I don't know. I'm just going deep here.
Actually, you don't even have to counter your own spell. You just target it.
Yeah.
Like maybe some weird Grixis Madness list, because let's be real. If you're playing Madness, you want to play Fiery Temper.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not going to go too deep on that one because usually those veins are not chock full of ore.
There's a black-green Madness list.
Yeah. The Tortex one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Perplex is really interesting once you get down to it. I don't think it's ever more than a one of, and I think it's a very niche counter at that.
But it is a cool card, and the more you know.
I mean, the Maybeboard is just, hey, I found this cool card while I was searching through stuff. Is it good?
Mike just clicks
Probably
random
not.
card over and over again until something appears.
Actually, we get sent a decent amount of these as well. We actually just got, I think, 2 or 3 emails full of Maybeboard cards, and while I appreciate it, guys, that is going to last us like a year.
Whatever. Let them come.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Our discussion topic for today is the topic of greed.
Yes.
And
you use it, and then you get to draw 2 additional cards from your deck.
Oh, the Yu-Gi-Oh memes. We're getting there. Really wow. Providing that high level of excellent.
I told Mike I thought it'd be
commentary.
funnier if we just put a clip in there, and I don't know. I was happy with that. All right.
I don't want to have to hunt down Yu-Gi-Oh episodes, rip audio off of them, and then it's Exodia. But what we're talking about is the concept of getting greedy while you're deck building. And I've noticed this happening a lot more recently. Specifically, there was a Boggles list that 5-0'd on a league with 12 creatures. And right before we recorded this little segment, I asked Adrian to see if he could figure them out, and it took a while.
I don't know. 4 Boggles, 4 Glade Cover Scouts, 4 Silhana Ledge Walkers, and at that point, Mike pushed this big red button and went, eh.
No, it was running 4 Boggles, 4 Glade Cover Scouts, and 4 Core Skyfishers. Now, it 5-0'd. Is that just because black's nowhere to be seen?
I mean, either that or he never the person, he or she, never drew Core Skyfisher in any of their games and got completely blown out by any removal spell.
So sometimes it's right to get greedy, right? Like sometimes you have like that weird splash that's super meta dependent.
Sometimes you're Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
Sometimes you're Waluigi.
Okay. Are we just naming greedy people?
I mean, I don't know.
But kind of one of the things I see a lot when people are building decks is we just covered a Jund list, right? 3 colors is kind of greedy in Pauper.
Yeah, I mean, Affinity is a great example of a successful greedy deck.
There you go.
You know, it's 5 colors. It dies to really, really easy removal, and yet people still play it. Still a good deck.
Yeah, and I think with that there's a good point. There's the trade-off of you're greedy, but your explosive games are super explosive,
right? And you know, Boggles is also even not this list. I think Boggles is fundamentally a greedy deck. We're a format that's defined by edict-based removal, and you're gonna run you know one creature stacked up with a bunch of stuff.
I mean, so for example, like Affinity, like if you see the turn 2 or 3 Gorilla Shaman, that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Might not be. It depends how many Dark Steel Citadels I've drawn.
But my point is, there's an effective glass cannon, and then there's just a bad glass cannon. For example, have you ever seen the deck Glass Cannon Red?
No.
So it runs every source of fast mana. It runs Simian Spirit Guides. It runs Lotus Petals.
Needle Spires?
No, because it comes into play tapped, and that's too slow. It runs Paretic Ritual, and I think Desperate Ritual. And what it does is it tries to turn 1, play an Immolating Soul Eater, and kill you turn 2.
That's terrible.
Well, here's the thing. If your opponent doesn't have a way to interact with it, it's just going to kill them turn 2.
It's terrible.
But I'm going for an extreme example here.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about something that is so greedy. Like,
right.
I think it does actually have Kiln Fiends in there as well. So it does have it has like 8 creatures a pile of like fast mana. It's got like Manamorphose
I mean,
and
mono black aggro is kind of the same way, right? Where, you try and Dark Ritual out 3 1-drops, and if you don't have that or that plan doesn't work, then the deck is kind of screwed.
yeah. So and there's like a point here about responsible greed, and knowing when you can say, okay, I'm willing to take some losses to my deck because the games I have where I get there are so explosive and hard to deal with. Again, affinity. Like sometimes turn 4 is just drop 4 Mirror Enforcers.
Right.
And that is good. Like most decks have a very hard time coming back from that. And that's an example, I think, of effective greed. Like Affinity is a good deck. It's a tier 1 deck, and I don't think anyone can dispute that. But, you've definitely had games where you've lost because you kept a hand that looked fine, and then you realized, oh god, the mana didn't line up in the right colors.
Right. It happens all the time. Sometimes you draw 5 lands in a row, too. It's whatever.
But there's like there's a responsible greed. And
a part of it is also that you have to be willing to take the risks that are inherent in your deck,
yes.
right? Like I can't really be like I get a little sad and I go sulk in a corner for days on end. But if an opponent blows up all my lands with the Gorilla Shaman, it's like, well, I'm the one playing all artifact lands.
Yeah. And also just like sometimes you want to do the safe thing. Sometimes you play, a deck with a highly consistent mana base,
Well, and there's so many, right? Like,
yeah.
There's Delver. And
I was just going to go to Delver. Delver is one of those things where that is a super safe and not in the least bit greedy deck.
Well, yeah, because the deck is all threats, counter spells, card draw, and it's one color.
Yeah.
And the deck is, it's packed with card draw. It has 8 cantrips on top of 4 ninjas, on top of Fairy Miscreant, on top,
Just value everywhere. And, anytime you get to like 3 colors and above, that's where you're entering greed zone.
Right. And, our pet deck, Pig Trinket, sort of gets around that by really being a mono black deck with some blue and green elements
also
to it.
Also Sakura Tribe Elder.
Yeah, Sakura Tribe Elder is so good.
The fact that you get to cheat by ramping and you get to cheat by always having perfect mana if you can cast one of those and it resolves really does help smooth that deck out. I still think it's a kind of greedy deck because
I mean, I've been Stone Rain before playing that deck. It's not fun.
No, it is not. Have you ever read a Karoo Stone Rain?
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah, that feels so much worse.
I think really what we're getting to here though is that greed is acceptable. Especially like not even just in your deck building when you're playing. Sometimes you just sort of got to gun it.
Yeah,
and like maybe that doesn't really work out, but when it does, it really pays off. And so you're like, oh, it was totally the correct decision. I'm a great Magic player.
Well,
I don't know.
well, I think another thing is also like recognizing, like, say you're looking through lists on Tapped Out or MTG Goldfish, and you see this really sweet list. Being able to analyze A, is this good, and B, where's the variance and risk in this? Like, is this a deck where I need to have really great draws to do really well? Or is this a deck where I can keep pretty much anything that's like 3 lands and 4 non-lands, and that's good?
And in my opinion, part of the greed cost is not just like, oh, I'm playing a 3-color deck, I hope I draw the right mana sources. I think by and large, you will draw the mana that you need. The problem is a lot of it comes into play tapped, and so your deck is inherently slower than a lot of other decks.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. Also the Karoos, which are, they're kind of the bread and butter for like big mana decks or decks that want to go into the late game. They're kind of slow.
Yeah, they set you back a land, A, and B, they come in and play tapped.
Yeah,
and then if someone blows them up, you're down 2 turns.
Oh yeah, the tempo loss from getting it bounced or having it stone rained is huge and not something to be ignored.
In a turn, boomerang, you're tapped. Career land, discard now, sucker.
Yeah. So I guess kind of the whole thing here is like analyzing like how greedy am I getting? Because a greedy deck can win. Like we started this off with an example of a 5-0 from a league. it did fine. And, you know,
Honestly, though, and I think I said it earlier, it's really hard to evaluate without knowing how those games happened.
yes, it's always tricky to just look at a number, and that is something that everyone should be aware of. If a deck 5-0s once, it's not the greatest thing you've ever seen. What you want to look for is something that can consistently 5-0. And that shows, you know, the deck is consistent. It might be greedy, but it gets there enough of, like, it's a high enough percentage of getting there to actually do well, right?
Right. And yeah, greedy mana base is totally, you know, you can make it work.
I mean,
there's a 5-color teachings list.
I was going to say Snow-Go is like the definition of a greedy deck. Like, it's 5 colors. It has a win con in 1 to 2 copies of Sprout Swarm, and that's about it. And if I remember correctly, at one point the list was running 1 green source. So like a Stone Rain just ends that deck's life. Like, right. That is a super, super greedy list. But if you can pilot it well enough and you know the ins and outs, that helps a bit. And then also, of course, being a little lucky on your draws doesn't hurt. Like, definitely knowing when to keep in mulligan is also a factor here.
Better lucky than good.
I mean, sometimes that's
the rallying cry of me everywhere.
Sometimes that just be how it is.
Yeah. So really, what we're saying is greed is okay. You know, but be aware that you're choosing to do so, and be aware that you are when you are doing it, because then you accept the risks.
Yeah, and also, like, if you're building a new deck, like you're brewing something up, and it doesn't work, and you keep like losing to like not having what you need at the time, maybe you scale back. Maybe you've got that third color that's a splash that seemed really sweet in planning, and maybe you just try saying, I'm going to cut this, you know, green splash out.
A great example of that is, for me, is you know, people who consistently try to add red to like mono black lists. It's like mono black doesn't really need red in it. They already have a lot of removal, and they're already, you know, beating face with their creatures, and they have Grey Merchant. They don't really need red spells.
Yeah, and for example, we saw in our the Drake times, the Jeskai Koldatha list, the mid-range, you know, Skyfisher thing, cutting blue and going to a red-white, low-to-the-ground, aggressive strategy where, you know, you weren't focusing as much on, like, bouncing and recasting your Wellsprings as you were just kind of, like, playing this low-to-the-ground value small critters deck. And also it helped that you got Rally the Peasants, which, again...
People love bouncing and recasting a Wellsprings.
They do. I was going to say, Rally the Peasants, I'm actually kind of excited to see what that does once Drake is gone. That was one we forgot earlier. But definitely, like, be open to the idea that, hey, I got too greedy. Like, I splashed 2 colors in a deck that didn't need them. And sometimes they work out well. For example, friend of the show, Alex Ullman, has been a champion for Marasa Black, which is mono black, splashing green for, like, Wickerbow Elder and Pulse of Marasa.
Alex, you cray.
Well, I think in that case, it does, like, you're a grindy mid-range deck. It's helping you be grindier and mid-rangier.
Yes. Grind those mid-ranges.
Enter the grindhouse.
Our upcoming feature film.
Yeah. I've made a lot of grindhouse jokes over the years. But definitely, like, being aware of, I am getting greedy, either in play or in deck building, is good. Like, I always try and make a note when I'm like, since I mainly play in paper, I make like little notes on my life pad. For example, like, I used to do it, but now I kind of just like try and remember it. I used to write like who I'm against, what deck they're playing, and I try to make like little notes of like, I kept a greedy hand. Like, I kept a 3-lander when I didn't have any like 3-drops.
Right.
And it didn't work out for me. Or I kept a greedy hand of like, in a control deck of like 1 land and a preordain, and I got there. And just kind of trying to see like, when does how often does me being greedy about my keeps actually pay off, and how many times would it have just been better to have 6 cards instead of the 7?
Mm-hmm.
So, again.
Think on it. Ponder it, if you will. Brainstorm about it, maybe.
Try and scry something out of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a moment there. I was trying to come up with something clever, but you took the easy ones.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, definitely try and be aware while deck building and while playing of how greedy you're getting, because some decks
It's okay to be greedy.
it's okay to be greedy.
Just gotta be aware.
Yeah, you got to maintain that consciousness of I am getting greedy. I've got to be careful.
And we're pulling up on an hour here, so
Take us out,
mind
Adrian.
if I- on a date. Oh well, that's all we've got for today. Thanks to Pat's Games for giving us a place to play a weekly popper. Thanks to Elle for the use of his song Quantitative as our theme music. You can find that and other great tracks on his SoundCloud under the name LLL. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We're also on iTunes, and if you subscribe there, please leave us a written review because that really helps us out. If you have an idea for a discussion topic or a deck list you would like for us to discuss, you can either use the contact form on our website or email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. I'm Adrian Gonzalez,
I'm Michael Pechek.
and we are signing off for Color Commentary.